Hello, Man in Gray here with another Man in Gray book review. Today's book is Fox by Martin Wallen, published in 2006 by Reaktion Books. It's 206 pages long. Reaktion Books is a British publisher, and their books are distributed in the United States by the University of Chicago Press. Fox is part of a 100-plus volume series that Reaktion Books puts out called the Animal Series. Each book is a paperback book, but they're unusually high quality for paperback books. They're printed on glossy paper, they have sewn bindings, and they're heavily illustrated. Most of the illustrations are in color. Now, this is an unusual set of books for about animals because most book series about animals deals exclusively with their natural history, and this does a little bit of that. But most of the Reaktion Books series, the primary purpose is the interaction between humans and that particular animal and how that animal has affected human culture. Martin Wallen is not a biologist, the author of this book. He's not a biologist. He's a English professor, or was at the time this book was written, an English professor at Oklahoma State University at Stillwater. So the emphasis here is primarily on the culture that grows up around that particular animal. And I picked the Fox book out of the 100-plus volumes because it's a pretty typical volume that illustrates how the Reaktion Book series runs. The first chapter does deal with the natural history of foxes. It describes the evolutionary history of foxes, how they're different from other animals in their family. It talks about the different species and subspecies of foxes, their behavior, their mating habits, their diet, their range, and so forth. So the first 30 or 40 pages is basically a summary of the animal's natural history. The second chapter, though, deals with various myths that humans developed over the centuries about foxes. There's a section on Greek myths and legends, including, of course, the Aesop fables, where foxes in Aesop's fables and also in a lot of other Greek legends are portrayed as kind of trickster animals, clever but unreliable and sneaky and out to benefit themselves. There's also some references to foxes in the Bible. In the Bible, foxes are almost universally portrayed as evil beings. In the Inca tradition, though, the ancient Inca Empire, foxes were seen as intermediators between the gods and humans, and so they were not seen as bad guys, but as potential friends or helpers to humans. And then in Japan, there's the legend of the nine-tailed fox, which is a shape-shifting spirit being, and foxes are often portrayed as kind of spirit beings that can change into women or into foxes. The next chapter after that deals with the name fox and how it's been associated with other animals and even with other people. It talks about the flying fox, the fox squirrel, and the fox sparrow, and it also talks a little bit about people that have had the fox name kind of attached to them, like Colonel Francis Marion, who was a lieutenant colonel during the Revolutionary War and had led hit-and-run raids against the British in South Carolina. He was known by the British as the Swamp Fox. And, of course, there's also the German Field Marshal Erwin Rommel, who battled the British in North Africa. He became known as the Desert Fox. The longest chapter in the book deals with the long history of fox hunting, particularly in Great Britain. It goes into great detail about how fox hunting evolved into the sport of the aristocrats and the royalty, and how starting in the middle of the 20th century, there began a movement to try to get rid of fox hunting, condemning as cruel, and it finally succeeded in 2005. Parliament passed a law permanently banning fox hunting. So there's a whole chapter on the development and basically the end of fox hunting. Related to that is another chapter about the commercial exploitation of foxes, the raising of foxes in barns and on farms for harvesting their pelts. And there's a whole section on the history of fox stoles and fox coats, and the pelts used in clothing, and how that became a symbol of wealth and among the upper classes in the 19th century. And again, the movement by animal rights people to ban the commercial exploitation and killing of foxes for their pelts. And then finally, the last chapter deals with foxes in the arts. There's several lengthy descriptions of movies that have foxes as major themes in the movies. One called Gone to Ground, a British movie from the 1950s, and there's a discussion of a Korean television series called The Nine-Tailed Fox about a woman who is a spirit fox and switches back and forth between a fox and a spirit. At the end of the book, there's a timeline that ties together all the various subjects that have been talked about in the book. There's also a list of the fox species and a description of them, how they're different from one another and their locations and so forth. There's also a bibliography, including a list of websites you can consult if you're interested in foxes, and then there's an index. So if you're interested at all in foxes, this is an interesting way. It's a good introduction to foxes, and it also tells a lot. If you're not so much a biology person, but you're interested in things like mythology and legends and so forth, this will teach you a lot about how foxes have played a role in those things. If you care about animal rights, you'll be interested in the chapters about fox hunting and commercial for fox harvesting. The book is Fox. The author is Martin Wallen, and this has been another Man in Gray book review. Thanks for watching.